Welcome back to Natural 2, our D&D and tabletop role-playing podcast and talk show. This week is a very interesting week, as I'm sure you can already tell, as we have two lovely guests with us, besides me, Nathan, and James, the regular co-hosts of this wonderful podcast. We have my sister Emily and James's wife Sarah with us today. They both have somewhat, I guess, different but budding relationships to D&D and tabletop role-playing, and we're gonna talk about that and discuss it and throw the ball back and forth and all that fun stuff. But as I understand it, James and Sarah had a little story to kick us off before we start the little powwow.
Yeah, so just to set this up again a little more, as I understand it, both of you are still more or less new players, right? You're due to the hobby. You have between 1 and 2 campaigns that you've taken part in, and we were each of your
Gateway drug?
sort of your gatekeepers, your pushers that kind of introduced you to it and got you started. But I wanted Sarah to tell the story. It's not a long story about when how and when she found out that I play D&D.
Yeah, well, he actually hid that he did any gaming at all, and would kind of throw vague references like, "Oh, I played a game today." And then one day I went out to his car and he opened up the trunk, and there was a trunk full of books on D&D. And
3.5. This was back in that era.
And you know that if you have not seen anything about this before and you start like seeing those D&D, the front of those books, it's like, what are you into?
Mm-hmm. He's in a cult, he's a sorcerer.
Yes. Like, do we need to reassess some things here?
Again, like the 3.5. So this is before Critical Role.
Mm-hmm.
This is before
I have
Stranger
those books,
Things.
and they look very different from like the kind of digestible versions of 5e books.
And this is before the like tabletop renaissance that we seem to be in right now.
So it was just really funny, and he kind of gave that look of, I have something to tell you. I'm actually a very serious gamer, and I really do this like all the time. And so he started telling me about D&D and kind of introducing me to it from that point.
Now, let's not undersell this. This was, how long had we known each other at that point?
Oh, I mean, I was still really new here, so I actually moved across the country to be with James.
Ooh.
And this was after that move.
It was shortly after that move. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, it's better than discovering it has like another family and like 3 kids, so.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some people might put it close.
Things that could have been in my trunk.
Yeah, all the things like
D&D books. Yeah, come on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so how long was it between discovering the books and actually like getting her into a game?
Yeah, I don't think it was long. It was what do you consider to be a long time?
I think it might have been like a year or two, because it was a while after that I was asking you if I could come and like shadow your games. Just let's sit in the next room and listen into you playing D&D with other people. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, and one of the issues at that time was that like I was in this guy Marcus's game at that time, and he kept things pretty strict, for lack of a better word. Like his game was his game. He owned it, right? And so I didn't know how to go to him at the time. We weren't like that, you know. We weren't like me and Nathan are. I couldn't just go to him and be like, "Hey, my girlfriend likes to watch. Is it okay if she just comes and sits in the corner?" You could act like that she's not there. But that was the first game. Was that the first game that you actually played in, that you kind of dabbled in, or you just came to hang out?
No, I just came to hang out, and I think I shadowed you twice before I actually ever played. And I think it was just two other people that we played with for my first time.
Hmm.
So really kind of feeling out like, is she gonna break up with me? Does she think this looks like fun?
I mean, if she survives watching you play, like with two separate groups for, that period of time, I think you're pretty good at that point.
So, and I don't, as I recall, it wasn't like I didn't have to browbeat you to get you into it. You were up for giving it a shot.
Yeah, I did want to try it. I didn't really understand the difference between creative. Um, I don't even know how to express it, but just that creative conversation and back and forth that you end up with in a game. And so I was trying to actually embody the persona of the person that I was supposed to be. So I was up in these people's faces, like yelling in their face. And I'm not normally like that. So they were really like, I don't know what to do with you right now.
Hmm.
Um, I was all in.
In other words,
That's awesome.
she's a natural, and is what we call that.
Hmm.
Okay.
There's a bit of a different story with Emily. Of course, as we were growing up, I got into D&D when I was like 12, 13, back when 3.5 was the main thing.
I think
Uh,
younger than that.
yeah, it's somewhere in
There's
that
that
range
there's that really cute photo of you on your bed at Mom's Marion house.
where I'm
Falling,
asleep on my book.
he's falling asleep with the D&D book open. It's really cute. He would just read it, and you must have
Mhm.
been like 8 there.
Yeah, I was pretty young,
9,
but
8, 9, 10 at the
yeah.
very most.
But like no one would play with me. I didn't have a group to play with because obviously D&D back at that time was usually more of a mature thing. It was like guys in like their late 20s hanging out and shooting the shit. And so no one like actually wanted to like incorporate me. So I always try to rope Emily into playing or like my parents into playing, which goes about as well as you would expect. The like core memory I have of trying to get you into D&D in the early days is the basket weaving. Do you remember
That's what I
that?
was gonna bring up. Yeah.
You want to like give your little introduction, I suppose?
Do you think we were what, like 13 and 15 then?
Probably in that range
Maybe
for sure.
younger?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I dabbled a little bit in it before that with him, but I don't think we
Mm,
ever got very far. But
mm,
there was one significant time when we were both like younger teenagers that he really tried to get me to play a game with him. And I pretty early on discovered that I could go out in the field, collect some grass, weave a basket out of it, and sell it for whatever Nathan decided I could
mhm,
sell it for. So I decided to spend like several in-game days just weaving baskets just so I
mhm,
could sell them. And then after that, I think I just wanted to like go in the woods and look for animals that I could make into pets
mhm.
or
Yeah.
familiars or whatever.
Yep.
I basically turned D&D into like a Sims game.
Yeah. Which I think a lot of people probably have that first
Yeah,
interaction.
yeah, because it was really tough just being the two of us.
Mhm,
Him being the DM and me being the only character, and it wasn't like I didn't want to go on like adventures or do things, but I think we just had a hard time figuring out how to set that up, and I just kind of resorted to like, oh, I'm just gonna make some money.
I love that story, and it's also, I think it's really similar to when you and I, Sarah, like sat down to play. I got it in my head that we were just gonna do one-on-one.
mhm. Well, this was after she had played in another game, right? If I understand the timeline right.
It was, yeah, it was, she wasn't a long-term addition to
Mhm,
those. Um it was like one-offs, one-shots, or cameos. So this was my attempt at like, this is gonna be our game. And what was that like when we sat down for that?
It was really intimidating, actually. um,
I don't blame you.
it,
James is intimidating.
um, I definitely feel like I'm pretty creative and I have a really rich inner dialogue, but expressing that and kind of letting it out and warming up to all the rules and just being vulnerable, it was kind of hard to start actually, but I did really like the storyline that he had going, so that was really fun for me. And so I was able to stick with it. But yeah, it was definitely nerve-wracking to start.
Mhm. I think
Well, yeah,
doing
there's
so.
And I think in our sort of preparation and our back and forth about our sit down, you talked about the hardest thing being knowing what to do, or knowing what you're supposed to do, which was interesting to me because I was expecting it to be the role play, which everybody online seems to have. That's their first complaint, but for you, it was just what now?
Yeah, definitely. I think, like, to compare it to a video game, it was an open world that I was supposed to be exploring, but I'm still stuck in like Mario Land, like where you go left or right and you jump up to hit the boxes, and I didn't feel like I had the choices in front of me to go left or right. So it was really hard to understand. No, I need to ask questions. I need to engage and explore what's happening in this world that we're kind of dropped in. So yeah, it definitely kind of sat there. I think actually really did sit there a few times and just kind of blankly stare at James like, I've got nothing.
I think that's a really like common problem. I mean, even James and I have discussed it at length on multiple parts of our episodes. Like people that are either older or not familiar with it or haven't really flexed that muscle in any way, when they sit down and they're given any opportunity, there's like analysis paralysis. They're like, "Oh, I can do anything." It's like, "Yeah, you can do anything. What am I supposed to do? No, anything. What do you want to do?" Yeah, so that was the one thing that kind of surprised me when Emily most recently played in my other game. She was like super worried before we like sat down and played and like she had her character created, like not knowing what to do or what the point was or what the purpose was. And she really took to it, which was very nice to see. I was very impressed with. So yeah, so I imagine Emily, you
yeah,
have
no,
the same thing.
yeah, I remember like before we started feeling really stressed about that, but honestly, that became much less of a problem for me. I was also really worried about the role playing,
Hmm.
and that didn't get much better for me. The role playing was always really hard, but also at times I often felt like I was the only one trying to role play or trying to engage with the NPCs in that way. And so that made it even more difficult. Like I would start trying to role play and other people would decide, "Oh no, we're not going to role play. We'll just talk about it." And that was really frustrating because I'd like finally worked up the courage to do it. Um, but for me, the biggest thing I think before actually starting the game, like the biggest fear was just how much of it there is. And that like kind of goes into the analysis paralysis part of it and how like open world it is, but also just like all different metrics and spells and this is and that's and different things you have to pay attention to. Like I kept forgetting I had different spells and things and stuff I could have been using in like battles the whole time or that to me was the most intimidating part because I was going into it with almost nothing, like a very loose idea of how the game works in my head. Like I understood it on like on a certain
Baseline.
level, yeah, on a certain level, I understood how it like all comes together, but all the individual components and how they actually come together, that was what was really terrifying for me. But I was also I would never would have started playing if I didn't have Nathan to play with because I know that I could just be like, okay, explain this to me, walk me through this, help me set this up, yada yada yada, which is a privilege a lot of people don't have, and I definitely abuse the shit out of it. Um, that and with a lot of other games too. But yeah, I as much as I like D&D and like love it for what it is, I can't imagine I ever would have gotten into it on my own without Nathan being into it.
It's
And
a test of willpower to get into it kind of isolated. Like you hear people that are, back in the day during the Satanic Panic, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I live in this podunk town with, everyone thought it was devil worship, so me and like two other guys that were super strange decided to play in the basement of like the church or something." Nowadays it's a bit easier, but yeah, it's always nice to have a guiding hand or someone you know or someone who's experienced or enthusiastic to get in with, or even your significant other being there. I imagine is maybe the best case scenario. because there's so much you can rely on in that aspect.
Yeah. It could be hard though. I do remember we tried to start a game back when you lived with me and we lived with two other people, so there was
Oh
four of
yeah.
us. How far did we even get on that
We
one? We did
got
not get far at all.
like
Like
30
one
minutes
game.
into the first session, and
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember being pretty excited about doing that though, and I don't know why it just didn't work out, but
Mhm.
I don't know, I don't think we had enough interest from everybody in it.
Yeah.
So here's for a pair of questions for both of you. And I'm gonna say you can answer either one or both, just to make it easy. Uh, was there a moment in playing that it sort of clicked for you and it sort of fell into place and you had this like, oh, that's how you play D&D, or that's why people play D&D, something like that, um, and or a moment that you remember as being particularly fun or particularly good from one of your early sessions.
Okay, I could start because I remember not being as excited about doing the battle stuff. I thought that that would be the stuff I didn't care about as much. And I'd be more excited about like the adventuring, finding things, talking to people, wandering around and exploring stuff. But I ended up really, really looking forward to the battles, and I really wasn't expecting that at all. And we had some really good battles that were really interesting, where like we did weird stuff that I wasn't expecting to happen, or I really came through and actually
Mhm.
like saved my buddies, and that felt really good. That was like the probably that game-changing moment was like the first time that I actually like was really successful in a battle and did something right. I was just like, yes, yes.
Yeah. I was super surprised. I think you might be referring to, was it the Treant fight? Is where
I
you
think so,
really,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, no, I was super, like, you came to me, I think, after that episode, and you're like, I think combat in, like, encounters is my favorite part. And I was like, the
Yeah.
woman that was basket weaving, 10 years ago? Like, so, that was
No,
cool.
that was exactly it. Like, it was so strange to me because I did not expect to like them at all, and they ended
Hmm.
up being part of my favorite bits.
Hmm.
So,
I think for me, I really started understanding it once we got into larger groups. So James was participating in a group nearby, and they had me come in. I think it was just for a one-off. And then James started running a campaign in our house, and this was pre-pandemic. And the camaraderie that is built and the silliness that you kind of encounter together, I really like that a lot. So that was kind of a moment for me of like, oh, okay, I get it now. I'm seeing why people decide to do this. And then over time, just in having conversations with James, being able to identify some of the benefits that you can get out of the game. And I am one of those weird people. I like to research benefits for everything. And that was another point where it started really making sense to me, like, okay, there's more to this than just a ton of rules and um, playing these games that were totally uh, um, out there for me. I did not grow up playing games like this at all. So it was definitely a learning curve for me. But I think that was really what set it off between the group and learning more about, like, okay, this is what you're getting out of this. Okay, this is cool.
yeah. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people that don't really get involved with D&D or see D&D at all being played, they just don't understand the creative aspect to it and like the social aspect to it. Like when Nathan really started getting into it and doing like Ismiliath and all that stuff, and I started watching it, I was like, oh my God, like seeing the amount of work that he put into everything, like from building the maps to writing the stories, creating the characters and all the background information on everybody. I I was just blown away by how like artistic it all was and how it wasn't just a game where you sat down and play following such and such parameters and you're all just taking turns, and it was something that required a lot of work and a lot of concentrated effort, but also having to work together. And that was one of the things that was more off about our game, that was more of a struggle, was trying to keep everybody
On the
connected
same
and
path, yeah.
on the same path. Yeah, that
Mhm.
was the big struggle of our game, where like the story was amazing, the characters were amazing,
All right now, okay, calm down.
it was all there, but trying to like connect with my fellow players
Mhm.
was really hard.
Oh, I can't believe we didn't do this already. What did you each play? Racing class.
I was a turtle, and I was a
Life cleric.
life cleric.
You were. I'm trying to remember. We did decide like what your deity was, but
Oh, it was that turtle thing.
yeah, but you decided that like it was your character was like coming into the age where she was expected to mate, and so she was like going against the grain and adventuring and like deciding to live her own life or something.
Yep.
Yeah. Her name was Finny.
Finny. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
she was really like shy and meek, but she also ended up being a pretty strong character. I feel like she ended up having to like, you know,
Do you have the
speak.
little sculpture of her still?
Yeah.
Fun.
So yeah, I got pretty into Finny. This is my little Finny sculpture I made. She's pretty cute. And then I had a Finny journal because I was the one that like took minutes of each session, and I started doing like artwork of each session too.
Oh
While
yeah,
I
there you go.
there and doodled.
Fun.
It's just like random junk, but that was really fun too. Like just creating a story
Mhm.
just by playing a game. That's another terrible drawing. But yeah, I wasn't expecting that either. I wasn't expecting us to actually create a story like that. I didn't see that when we started playing. I didn't see how that would all come together. But just the way things just unfold naturally is so cool.
And in our big game here at the house, you were playing, Sarah.
I was a rogue, right?
Oh, so the rogue was for our one-on-one.
Okay.
Because, and I recommended that because for playing one-on-one, you needed access to a lot of skills, so
Yeah,
I didn't
skill
have to
monkey.
make half a dozen NPCs for you. But when we brought the whole gang over, you were playing a barbarian.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I was.
Barbarian, that's cool.
Yeah, I liked it.
I think it's I think in the barbarian rage mechanic is something that was very intuitive for Sarah. Don't ask me how I know. Um,
Well, how long did that game last that you hosted at your own house?
it was I'm really bad with spans of time and with dates. I
I think it was about a year. We were going on our 1 year mark when the pandemic hit.
it stopped because of the pandemic. It was that March of 2020, and I sent a message to the group. I think were we still using like WhatsApp or something like that?
Yeah, that's right.
Like a bunch of soccer moms. And I sent them a message, and I just said, something very much like, pandemic's on, game's canceled.
Very
You guys
James.
didn't try to like bring it online or pause it until maybe you could get back together.
Well, I think the idea was that we were going on hold, right? Like we would
Until the
try to get back
pandemic
to
passed.
it. Yeah, it was like 2 weeks to stop the spread in those days. Still, like, people just didn't know. And so as weeks turned into months, it became like, all right, we're not going to do this. And we didn't take it online for, I think the biggest reason was because we had at least one fogey in the group that just wasn't interested in making that attempt.
Is
Are
it
you
always
talking
that
about
one?
me?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
I
No,
didn't want to go online either.
he would know who he is. I don't want to call him out, but that was kind of a non-starter. But yeah, that went on every Sunday. This was so props to you again, Sarah. Like, this was the game where we played on Sundays, and we played for 8 hours. With a dinner break. And
Damn.
the other piece that has taken getting used to for her is the idea of like, no, sit down. We're in you're in that chair for hours. Uh Especially in this Sunday game that was going on. So that was she was a champ though. She was a champ about that, and a natural, and um picked up the D&D stand, as I think of it. Like, it's once the game goes past the first hour, typically somebody's standing up. Somebody's gonna stand up at that table. It's usually me. Uh, Especially like, also I think I DM'd from my feet the entire time because I had to. It helps my process to be moving, I guess.
Well, it allows you to be more animated and like move things around the table. I think a lot of in-game DMs find themselves standing more often than not.
And I think that, frankly, like, not to put you on the spot, but that's probably the biggest obstacle to getting you back into a game, which is what, I'm always kind of thinking about that in the back of my mind. How do I get you back roped
Like
in?
standing?
Is the scheduling the block of several hours to sit and do this. And I'm not even gonna blame it on the kiddo, because even before him, it's not easy for everybody. It's not easy for everybody to say, all right, tonight I'm gonna sit here for 4 hours.
Yeah, I'm definitely pretty active, and so even when we're watching TV, I can't just sit still. I'm up doing stuff, or like pause it. Oh, I'll be right back. And you don't really get to do that in the D&D session, especially if you have other people dedicating their time to come over and really commit to the process too. So having to learn how to cope with that and kind of like force that urge down just a little bit, that was very hard.
Yeah, that's exactly how I am. Like, I've always got to be doing a few things at once. I can't just be sitting and watching something or sitting and doing something. Like, it's been very hard for me to even get back into playing video games as an adult because I feel like I can't just like sit and focus and play a video game. It is easier when you're talking to people, but one of the things that prevents me from trying to go do a D&D game on my own without Nathan or something like that is I would really like to play a game, but it's finding the right people, which is fucking terrifying. And like, even if you find great people,
And even the
they'll
best of
might
us
not work
struggle with
out.
that.
Yeah, so that's a huge factor. But the other huge factor is the commitment of it. I'm a pretty busy person. I've got stuff going on all the time. I can't think of any day of the week where I could go, oh yeah, 4 hours this day every week. I'm here sitting in this chair playing this game. I just can't do that. So that's such a huge barrier between me and getting involved in like a real game.
So you bring up like finding the right people, and this might be a question that we end up taking out, but we'll see. I feel like I would be remiss to let the opportunity go by to not at least touch on it. And you two may not really have a whole lot to say on it. I kind of would hope that you wouldn't, frankly, given that we were your vehicles into the hobby, and it's been kind of a walled garden. Whenever you've played with us. But was there anything about being women that intrinsically created any kind of hesitation or any weirdness for you at any point? Because it's a thing in the broader hobby space, is that a lot of tables have a sexism problem. And it's kind of known. It's kind of an open secret.
Well, not
So
always in like a negative light. It could also be like, oh, there's a girl at the table. Like, oh, there's a girl at the table. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. Like it's never something I was super concerned about. Like I'm nerdy in some other ways and have always been in spheres that are like that, like more male dominated spheres. But it's never been something that concerns me that much because I really just don't care. It really what bugs me the most is what Nathan's touching on is when people think something special going on because there's a girl in the game and yada 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 and this and that, and suddenly you're getting like a weird DM or like just weird shit that you don't want to be dealing with when you're just trying to play a game with your friends.
Or like
Um,
preferential treatment, maybe.
Mhm.
well, yeah, or just like people not wanting to just play the game with you and maybe trying to do something else or play with you
Mm.
differently than they would somebody else. But again, that's not something I've ever really been too concerned with. And both other games I've played with Nathan, there were other girls involved, and so I think that helped.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I just don't see it as big of an issue. I
I
remember
don't
it
think
being a
that
big thing when I played League of Legends when I was a teenager. League of Legends is terrible.
I'm in agreement with Emily. I have been in a lot of male dominated spheres, so that kind of stuff doesn't really intimidate me. Um, in fact, I'm pretty sure I can gross everybody out at the table, so
Yeah.
really
That's the
not worried
goal.
about it.
I hope I did a good job hiding it. You did, however, get some preferential treatment, but it was
Oh,
because you're my
yeah,
wife, not because you're just a girl.
yeah.
But I think I hit it. I think I hit it fairly well. I don't think the other guys caught on.
Hmm.
If they did, they never said anything. They
So
only had good things.
this might be our little last thing, but I was curious because Sarah brought this up a little bit ago. When James asked like what your moment was when you kind of like had D&D click and the thing that kind of I don't know excited you the most, you mentioned more kind of like the camaraderie of the group or like the social dynamic of it. And I was curious, like, I kind of see it split, and so this is why I'm curious about it. Was it like the party dynamic and the shenanigans that you guys got up to, or was it the actual people you were playing with and kind of like bumping shoulders with them and like having inside jokes? Like, or is it a combination of the two? Like, what about that specifically was kind of the thing that got you in?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it would be the combination of the two. There was definitely some really party aspects of it and a lot of goofing off, kind of childlike jokes and goofiness that I don't know, it just really appeals to me. Um, but also having the kind of the inside jokes within the game and the dynamics of teamwork in this world, right? And then this collaboration as in party, like you said, um, in in real life. So yeah, I think it would be both of those things that really kind of brought it home, and it was like, okay, yeah, this is cool.
I think that's one of the things that's lost more often than not in online games because you're very disconnected. You like all hop on at the same time, all hop off at the same time. But when you're in person, there's that like getting set up and kind of, shooting the shit and getting ready to
Yeah.
play. And then there's the downtime afterwards. And that's kind of an interesting thing that the kind of newer age of D&D is losing a little bit of as far as I'm aware. So yeah, it's good to hear that that was like a solid part of you getting into it and perhaps one of the main things that stuck with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've definitely seen that, and I don't know how common it is in games where you are meeting in physical, physically, games where you are meeting physically to like talk about the more meta aspects of the game outside of the game and have that time to like chit chat and have chemistry and talk to each other before you get into the game.
Mhm,
Because I think that's so harsh to like jump on, not really talk to anybody, go straight into the game, play the game, and then, okay, good night, everybody.
mhm,
That's something that was kind of missing from our game. We did do some chatting, but we all like we play other games together. This group of us, we play other games together and stuff, and we all have great chemistry together, have a ton of fun, are goofy, have inside jokes. But there was something with the D&D campaign that we played where we all just kind of had different agendas, and we didn't really go into it talking to each other.
mhm,
And kind of making a plan together or anything like that. We were just all off in our own little worlds.
Yeah,
And
there's no
that's
late
what was
night
really,
conversation that like stretched into the early hours of the morning.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what was really difficult about it, is I kind of wanted to talk to everybody about,
Mhm.
hey, this is what we're doing, or this is what our goal is, or blah, 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 or I'd like to do this or that. But it was all just kind of like, okay, this person does that. Okay, what are you doing? Okay, I'm going to go do that. Okay, what are you doing? I'm going to go do that. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess kind of to elaborate on that, there was also an entire environment set up when you're meeting in person, right? We were in our dining room, which is somewhat closed off. It kind of provides that cave-like feel. And then there's the mystical music going, and the physical hard. Actually, we had a TV at one point that we laid flat that we were using for our for the
Cool.
map, but also just some physical items that you can touch. And so we're all in that world together. We're all closed off from everything else, right? But when you're on the computer, when you're playing electronically, um, I think you do lose that a little bit. You do miss out on that environment.
Yeah.
The ambiance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Well, Nathan did do a really good job using, we used a Roll20
Mhm.
and using maps on that and our little character guys, so we could all like kind of see the context of what was going on as we were talking. Like trying to do that without having a map would have been really hard. But he even set like
Mhm.
little ambiance music and stuff. It was really
Oh
nice.
man, don't I imagine Sarah's never played Theater of the Mind games.
Um, I'm gonna say no.
Mhm.
Like we had an attempt with
Mhm.
with a game in Savage Worlds, but it didn't get off the ground.
That's like a
Uh,
whole other universe almost, kind of getting used to that and getting comfortable with that aspect.
I have no idea what you guys are even talking about.
Theater of the Mind refers to playing without any map.
No references, no
Uh,
tokens, no like characters, yeah.
ugh.
You're just talking the entire thing out.
Gotcha.
Which opens up a lot of doors, but also like if you're not, it's like playing chess without a chessboard, basically. Some people enjoy it, some people can't even get off the ground with it, so yeah.
Yeah, I'd struggle with that one.
Any closing thoughts?
No, just
Parting
that,
parting words?
I
If
do.
anybody is hesitant to try it, just try it. It's really fun, and I think there's a lot to be gained from it.
Yeah.
So give it a shot. And what I have found so far, and I think what I've understood is that I'm probably pretty lucky with the groups that I have played with, but everybody's been really forgiving and really nice, and very tolerant of like, what am I supposed to be doing? So just try it and see if you like it. It can be a whole family activity.
It's gonna be a family activity.
Oh, yeah, but I also think there's so many options out there for how to get into it, especially nowadays, and probably some that I should look into myself, like doing one-offs with people or smaller campaigns or littler things where it's not as big of a commitment. Because, like I said, that's my biggest barrier to entry is the commitment aspect of it. But I just want to say thank you to Nathan to introducing me to D&D,
I'm glad I can finally get you into something a bit
forcing
more
it down my
meaningful.
throat.
Yeah. Than weaving baskets and starting a monopoly on the basket trade.
I will get back to that game eventually, and I will conquer.
I want to point out here at the end, in no way was this planned or coordinated at all. But it looks like Nathan and I are in the same room, and the ladies are in the same room.
I think it's the
Like,
lighting is like similar on the other two.
Yeah,
yeah,
you guys are in
Nathan,
like these like dark caves, dens.
yeah, we've both got our
Mhm.
our like brooding nest space here,
I have flowers.
and the girls are the rooms are well lit. The walls look like they're an identical color. I think maybe at least in the camera.
I think that says more about us than them. They have their lives put together.
I got that.
True enough.
The tapestries cover up a lot.
Uh,
Is that a
so
metaphor for life?
it's
Yep.
Sarah, will you do the honors? It's time for the YouTube thing.
Oh, Jesus.
Please like and subscribe and click the bell and do everything you can to promote this wonderful channel.
There we go. I'm
Excellent.
glad
Excellent.
James is prepped her, I can tell.
Well, she's watched the videos. She knows.
That's true. I was going to say, you mentioned the benefits of playing D&D. I think you suggested that topic for us a while
Mhm.
back. So thank you for that. Somewhat late.
Welcome.
But yeah, that's been our interesting little dual interview with our D&D shenanigan people that we've dragged along. So yeah.
We've enjoyed talking to you, and I would like to do it again at some point. Interesting
That's
to get a
great.
new perspective on some of this stuff.
Perhaps we'll have to get him in another game so we have a fresher
Yeah.
perspective to pull from.
We could all do a one-off or something.
Oh man, the
Oh, that
four
would
of
be
us should do a
fun.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, the screen right here with everybody on it looks very natural.
That could be interesting.
Natural 4.
Oh no.
Like kids.
Finger guns, yeah.
The branding.
Killer. All right. So hope you enjoy. Come back next week, even though it'll probably just be me and Nathan again. We'll do our very best.
hmm Maybe we should like try and cosplay as our I guess other halves.
You gonna cosplay as your sister?
I don't know if I
You
can pull
know,
it off. I have to get a wig.
I'm so glad it was you that did that, Nathan, because I was in my head going like, okay, it's my wife, but it's his sister.
Yeah, I was
Don't
just trying to
say
think of the
anything gross.
term to incorporate both. Yeah.
Would it be weird if you became Emily and Nathan
Oh, I
became
should.
me?
Oh no.
Ooh, there we go.
We're getting
You know,
multiple layers deep.
I actually like that for a later episode, and that's what this episode almost was me interviewing Emily and Nathan interviewing Sarah.
Yeah, we kicked that
Or
idea
Sarah,
around.
or Sarah and I could just do an episode one time where we pretend to be you guys.
Heck yeah, heck
That would be fun.
It's just the
These
whole
are all
episode
great
of them
ideas.
ragging on us.
Yeah, we're just making fun of you the whole time.
Hey, you know what? I earned every bit of it.
Oh, believe me, Nathan did too.
Well, I think we have satisfied our rambling conclusion as per usual.
So bring it back here for more. Until next time.
Have a good one.